I'm Ryan, this is my brother Daniel, and this is Rolls in the Family. Today we are going to be counting down all of the games that left each of our collections in the last 6 months. We are definitely the types of gamers that frequently think of ways to, which games aren't getting to the table, which games aren't filling a niche in our collection. And we sometimes even get rid of games that we like quite a bit, but they just are in a really competitive niche with, really strong games that they're competing to get to the table. So hopefully this will be interesting as we kind of walk through it and talk through some of our reasoning on why they left our collections.
Yeah, so how the structure of this video is going to go is we have added our rating to all of these games that left our collection. So we're going to start at the very bottom, the worst of the worst, and work our way up. So it'll be kind of interesting at the end of the video when you see games that we rate actually pretty well, and yet hear maybe why they still left our collection. As always, it's kind of funny to mention that there's going to be links in the description below for games that left our collection, but especially later in the video, there's still games that I think we can recommend for maybe a certain situation, maybe a niche that just didn't work for us, but we'll add those links below if you ever want to check one of these games out. But yeah, we're going to be alternating based off how we rated them. So Ryan, I think you are the first one up. What is the worst game that left your
And we'll try to keep these pretty snappy. I think we got 24 games to get through, so we'll try to not make a 4-hour video here, but
a little longer. Yeah.
Yes, my first game is a party game, and we talked about, a lot of times I'll get party games around the holidays, and I'll, get a few, and it's really hard to predict which ones are going to land. And this is one that really, really did not land for us, and that is Masterword. I loved the concept of it, of combining kind of 20 questions with this mastermind concept where, of the questions we asked, this many apply, but this many don't, but we don't know which they were. But it just really was almost broken in how it worked, and with the optimal strategy being you can actually as a team ask the same question, so you have 3 people ask the same question, 2 people ask a different question, which basically meant for sure how the person was answering as far as which it removed all the deduction, so it was kind of the optimal way to play. And then the person that's actually, giving the answers has now no interesting decisions, because the only interesting decision they had was that they can one time lock in an answer as this is true. It just really didn't work, and I couldn't see a way that it would work. And so I'm giving it a 3.5, which feels harsh, but it, really was a game that really broke down for us. So I can't really recommend it.
Yeah. I was in did we just play it once?
Just one time. And then I thought very heavily over the next day of could this work?
We played it and we're just this is broken. This doesn't work. And maybe maybe it can work for a different group, but man, that was a rough play.
Yeah, so that's definitely the lowest of the bunch here. We're going to make a little jump here for my second one to another party game that I actually had good experiences with. It just really wasn't getting to the table in competition with some other party games I had, and that is When I Dream. I'm going to be giving When I Dream a 6 out of 10. It's this game where you're somebody's blindfolded and everybody's trying to get them to guess the current word, but people have different roles. So you might be on the team that's trying to get them to get it, but other people want to mislead them. And so the person that's blindfolded is trying to kind of parse through, try to figure out maybe who's misleading them or who's not, and try to answer these questions. At the end of the day, it was fine. And it wasn't a party game that I saw keeping in my collection. I think it's hard because it plays a wide player count, but it is one of those games that I think a lot of people, there's specific people that don't like that type of game, kind of the pressure of it. There's kind of this thing at the end of the phase where you have to try to recount all the words that you guessed. And it's this memory thing, which is a little weird. And with a big group party game, it's hard to have a group where everybody is, a good fit for the game. So a fine game, but I gave it a 6 out of 10. It wasn't worth holding on to.
There you go. Over to me. I am the worst game that has left my collection. This is actually kind of a shocking one for me. The game we've both played is Project Elite. And I'm going to be giving this also a 6 out of 10, which gosh, that feels so low for like, this is a
Yeah,
game
we were really expecting
we
this
were
one.
so excited about this one. I mean, it's real time, cooperative, you're kind of like Escape, you're rolling dice and using it to just, go through all of these alien monsters and beat missions. This just sounded like my type of game. But there were just a few crucial problems with it I had. One, and this is a problem, you'll probably see this recurring on a list. If there is just not a lot of variability in a game, that's something I hate. And this one, after playing it once, and I realized, okay, there's not really that much with like the characters, and you've got a few missions, but they kind of are all pretty similar.
Well, there's the big bosses, but you see like almost all of them within
all
one
the bosses
game.
Every game. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I would want one big boss, and you have a different one each game. You go through all of them every game. So that was like oh my goodness. So the game was fun when I played it. It was like, okay, this is pretty fun, but I just realized, man, anything beyond this, it's just going to really start to feel the same. The other thing I didn't like about it was the arc of the game. You kind of go out and you're having fun, but then eventually you hit a point where you kind of realize, oh, we've got this.
Yeah, you tip the scales.
You tip the scale. We love our cooperative games to like, I feel like the perfect cooperative game, you end at that peak where, the tension, last die roll, you win the game. This, you go, and then the last like third of the game, you're just like resolving a win that you already feel like you have. And so I felt like, almost half the game, like you're not even it's not tense. Yeah, one I really wanted to love, but had just some of those problems kind of made it leave my collection pretty. I mean, you played it, I played it, and left my collection.
Yeah,
pretty
both of us had
a
very similar feelings of it. And honestly, for me, it was one that made me realize how much I actually do still enjoy Escape: The Curse of the Temple, which is in my collection. And I just realized I'd rather play that in a 15-minute game. I can play that 3 times, even 4 times in the time I can play Project
The value's way better, and variability.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So the next one is kind of a funny one. In the last year and a half, 2 years, have gotten more into some solo board gaming. I don't do a ton of it, but it has been something I found fun when I don't have opportunities to get together with other players. And I was able to pick up I was at a store and they had a copy of Black Sonata, which is this kind of very niche solo only game where you're an investigator. It's like Shakespearean themed around like this, I don't know. It's like this story of Shakespeare's like hidden love or something. I didn't get a lot into the lore here, even though they had like a full lore book included. But it's basically a single player like hidden movement deduction game, which is honestly a very impressive design feat that they were able to like make this work. And so you're moving around this little city board and trying to identify where the hidden lady is, and be able to start getting information that'll help you with like the final deduction in the game. And it was really clever, and it kind of had this interesting path mechanism of how the lady moved around, and you have these tokens to show like where could she be right now. And I had a lot of fun with it, honestly, the first couple plays. But then it like fell off a really steep cliff of just like the replay value for me personally. One, the deduction, I got to the point where the final deduction puzzle, I've always loved these kinds of puzzles and doing puzzles, and it comes very naturally to me. So I found that the final puzzle basically was pretty easy for me to figure out if I had enough information or not. And then during the game, when the lady's in multiple places, I realized it just boiled down to kind of like guessing until you could get it narrowed down. So it didn't feel like there were a lot of very meaningful decisions, and it was a little repetitive. So I'm really glad I tried it because it was a very interesting game, but it just wasn't going to hold up as a solo game that I want to come back to again and again.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't even know you.
Did I say that I rated that a 6? I rated that a 6.
Rated that a 6. Nice. Yeah. So coming over to me, my next game that I got rid of is Dragon Castle. And do you still own Dragon Castle?
I do still own Dragon Castle.
You still own Dragon Castle. Well, I'm going to be coming in at a 6.5 for Dragon Castle. Dragon Castle is actually, it's a good game. It's I love the components. I love the little domino pieces and how it looks on the table is great. The things, it just didn't get me going. Like, it's like it's a good design. It's cool, the idea, and yet I find just when I'm playing it, it's kind of just like, okay, I don't know.
I actually probably am not far off from you in my opinion of this. It's a really light game, with a few kind of interesting decisions, but it's really light. Honestly, the reason it sticks around for me is my wife, Mary, does like it, and she's not someone who likes a lot of different games, so it's been a game we enjoy playing 2-player, and it's honestly probably best 2-player, but I can see why it maybe doesn't have as much staying power for you.
Yeah, and it also, like, because it's kind of such a light game, I feel like it has a lot of setup for kind of what it does take a while to stack all the domino pieces. Yeah, but even the ability, or is it abilities, or the things that kind of are random,
the animal spirit,
just, I don't know, nothing in it gets me that excited. It's not a bad game. I can see people who like it, but didn't get me going. 6.5.
Nice. Yeah, we're in that range right now. That just didn't get me going. That's like what like a 6.5
like
is
not
for
a
us.
Not a huge problem, but
So my next game is going to be Port Royal, and I'm going to be giving Port Royal also a 6.5. And this is a game I've been kind of on a kick of looking into a lot of these push your luck games. We've had huge success with games like Quacks of Quedlinburg, and then I got some of these lighter card games like Push that I've had a lot of fun with, and I've just realized it's a fun mechanism for like a lighter group. And I'd heard a lot of good things about Port Royal that's kind of the primary mechanism in it. It's by Alexander Pfister, who's designed some of these like big, impressive games like Great Western Trail.
Yeah.
And I played it one time, and it was okay. It didn't wow me. It's got a little bit of this engine building thing as you acquire cards. I don't love that, like, when you push on your turn, it's kind of that you're revealing cards, but if you've ever revealed 2 ships that are the same color, you're not going to get to take anything. But I don't love that it's all or nothing. Like, if you bust, you get nothing. And so, like, you have to wait until that comes all the way around to your turn and you've made no progress. Whereas a lot of games will at least throw you something, like, so that you feel like you didn't, like, just, completely waste a turn. But yeah, it just didn't really have anything that made me feel like I would want to come back to it. And honestly, not anything that would get it to the table over a lot of these push your luck games that I already have. So yeah, it was a pretty quick decision for me.
Yeah.
After playing it, I was just like, I'd rather play some of these other push your luck games.
Yeah, I had played that one a long time ago in college. I think I played it once, but and that's kind of what I remembered. It was like, it's
yeah. I think I talked to you, and you like hardly remembered it, which I guess is a testament to it wasn't
like,
all that memorable.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. So my next game that I am getting rid of is Kingdom Builder. Got Kingdom Builder a little while ago and played it several times actually. Even got the expansion for it. And a good design in that I think it's kind of interesting how it's so simplistic in terms of just, some people even complain how simplistic it is.
Yeah.
You just draw a card and I just have to play on the type of land that the card shows. But it actually, as you continue to play throughout the game, gets pretty strategic as you get, you play buildings next to these little, I don't know what they're called, but you get these tiles that give you abilities. But I find it just falls into a really weird niche in that. So it's really simple. And so part of me would be like, oh, great. This is a game I could, play with people who just want a simple board game. But then you start getting all of those ability tiles and it actually starts to get kind of crunchy and you have to like think a lot. And then when it only, anytime a game falls into that like 4-player range, for us, it's got to be like great because that's almost every one of our games falls into that, section right there. So it didn't do a lot. I just find it's one of those things where it's like a game's good, but you just never are able to get it to the table because you just can't think of the right situation to play it. So Kingdom Builder coming in at a 6.5.
A few moments later.
So we're continuing on the 6.5 train to a game that entered into my collection largely because I wanted a game that was kind of a dexterity stacking game. I didn't really have a game like that. And that is Junk Art, which, like I said, is also getting a 6.5 for me. This one, we had a lot of fun with it, honestly, up front. It's got kind of all these different mini games with the stacking. And I think it just was over time, neither my wife or I just really felt like playing it anymore, like ever. Like anytime when we were picking games, it was just like, yeah, I don't really want to play Junk Art. And I don't know exactly why it burned out so hard for us. But, you know, that's kind of the death nail for a game in your collection when you even have the situation that you know would be
and you
like
still don't choose
a time to it, and you still are like, just like, I want to pick a different game.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was a nice one to try, and I guess, you know, I still don't maybe have that, and maybe it's not an important niche to fill the stacking dexterity type of game.
Hey, you got Beasts of Balance.
True, I played Beasts of Balance like 400 times with my 2-year-old. Yeah. Plugged Top Games for 2-year-olds video.
Yeah, Beasts of Balance, the Junk Art killer, as they say.
Yeah, that's what we say.
That's
but yeah, Junk Art was fine. It was fine. It just wasn't getting pulled off the shelf, so it can't stick around at that point.
Yep, that's when games go. Which transitions well into my next game that I'm got rid of, which is Alchemists. Now, I feel like this, I can't even talk that long on this one because I feel like I have a really unfair, like, I only played it. I think I only played it once.
Yeah.
But I had just beforehand earlier gotten The Search for Planet X. And my wife and I really loved that and really liked how it, you know, gave that deduction puzzle feel but in a really streamlined, just it does it in a really short amount of time. Alchemist takes that same mechanic but adds it into a really kind of heavy, you know, just bigger game that takes a lot longer. And so I can see how people would even prefer that. But for us, it was just like, man, The Search for Planet X just does this in a shorter, quicker time, kind of gives us that experience. So it's not really that I have anything wrong with Alchemist. Honestly, it was even more so just the timing of, I had just gotten this other game that, so I almost wondered, maybe I didn't give Alchemist a good enough chance, but it just felt like it was kind of, they were hitting similar tastes, and Search for Planet X, I just thought did it in a really streamlined fashion for me. So Alchemist going to be getting a 6.5 for me.
Yep, there's a cost to complexity, right? Like that it has to earn it. Like more complexity has to be adding a lot to the game.
And it's significantly more complex.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Cool. My next one is a very, very fascinating design.
It is.
And that is The King is Dead, specifically the second edition. And I'm going to be giving this a 7 out of 10. This, for me, falls into this category of games that feel more interesting than fun. And it's like a fun exercise to be in this like really interesting thing. But I just find at the end of the day that most of my enjoyment is coming from how interesting I think the design is, and not so much that I feel like I'm having so much fun playing it. It's this weird area control where nobody controls the individual countries, and you all have the same actions. You're only going to take 8 actions in the game to be able to kind of manipulate where things are on the map. But then you're taking cubes off the map, which not only influences which countries are controlling different areas, but it then determines which ones you're potentially going to score in. So whichever country ends up winning at the end, it's going to be whoever has the most influence in that. So it's this really weird, like, I'm betting on the one that I'm making weaker. But then that's all open information. So then, like, just because I'm into something doesn't mean somebody else can't get in. So it's very fascinating to see how it all comes out. And you could even have it that if they all tie, there's this chance of, it's like the French invasion or something that happens. And in that case, you want to be well-rounded. And so it's just like this strange, and a lot of people really love it. But for me, I was just like, I don't think it's going to get back to the table. It doesn't have a lot of variability to it. I mean, it's going to play out differently with some of the setup, but not a lot of variability that got me excited, I guess, about like how each game was going to set up. Really glad I tried it. And from like the design side of my mind, I find it like so fascinating. But just, it wasn't going to be one that was going to continue to hit the table. So King is Dead is a 7 for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's hard when you're researching games to differentiate between interesting design and is this fun?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's almost hard to know whether you see something like that and it's like, wow, that's fascinating. But how do you then find out if it's fun, you know?
And fun is so personal. There's a lot of people that's what they find fun. Like they love finding these games that, you know, and I can relate to that. I have games that's a lot of my enjoyment. But for this one, it just it needed more for me to want to keep coming back to it.
No, I very much agree with your sentiment on that game. Very interesting. But it didn't really, when I tried it with you, it didn't excite me too much. My next pick is going to go to a game that you gave to me. So it's your fault.
You got rid of it?
And I got rid of it. And that is Nidavellir. This one actually really saddened me because there's a lot of really cool parts of this game. Like the whole, everyone's kind of simultaneously, you've got these chips that you're placing and then revealing, and you're using them to basically bid on claiming cards that score in different ways. Like I loved all of that, and the whole chip upgrading. Like I thought that was so cool. And so this is why this is so sad for me, is there was so much of it that I'm like, this is great, this is awesome. I just realized this type of game needed to be one that is super accessible. Because it's not super heavy. So for this to be perfect for my collection, it needed to just be easy to teach. And I realized after teaching it a few times, it was not that. And it's because of all of the special cards. I don't know what they're called, but those like, you set up these different fanning of cards all out. There's probably like 30 something cards every game that are just all around. And they all have iconography that's not intuitive, and I have to go through before the game and try to explain every single one because they got to know their options. Yeah. And that just killed it. It really did. It was like, gosh dang it. This is the central game is so much fun, but all of that extra stuff, I mean, if you played with the problem is if you play with the same group, it's like, well, this isn't a game that's going to be my favorite game. I would rather, like, if I'm going to have the same group, I'd rather play some of my more favorite games. This was supposed to be a super accessible game, and that all just the added stuff for me ruined a core mechanic that I think is so much fun. Like, and I think that's why Nidavellir got, is a lot of people love it. Is that central mechanic is so much fun, but all the extra bloat kind of just soured it for me. So if I didn't mention already, that is getting a 7 out of 10 Nidavellir.
Yes, very nice. I am going to be coming in with another 7 out of 10 for Awkward Guests. So this is a deduction game,
very
kind
interesting
of
game.
In the category of maybe a Search for Planet X or some of these other games. But it's very fascinating. It's kind of like Advanced Clue, honestly. Like that's the best way to describe it. Everybody's got this piece of paper that has a map of the mansion and Mr. Walton, whoever has been murdered, and you ultimately have to figure out who did it, with what was their like path through the house, and what was their motive. And it's got this interesting thing where everybody's got cards in their hand that tell you something. And so you can start eliminating options, or, one of the people, the maids in the house said that nobody came through this room. So you know that, like, okay, nobody came through this room, so that means it couldn't be this person because that was the only way they could get to the study to commit the murder. So there's some interesting deduction stuff going on. And then on your turn, you're saying, I want information about like these two things. And people can make offers of cards from their hand that relate to those two things. And for me to take their offers, I have to trade them an equivalent amount of like evidence from my hand. And so that's how you get this exchanging of information. There's a couple reasons. I actually had some really fun sessions of this.
The first time I played
reasons,
I almost considered owning it after the first time. Yeah.
I think there's a couple reasons it didn't stick around in my collection. One, it is a little complex and long for like what I would want it to be. I mean, the game was usually with a new group, you're taking closer to 90 minutes or more. And it isn't simple. Like you have to explain this, and it's very important you explain it because it's like this deduction game where I'm not you don't want to be asking for help a lot during the game. So that was a little hard. It also is a translation. It was originally in French or something. There's some weird little things in the game, like especially this one card that like what it says on the card isn't really what it's telling you deduction wise. Like I always have to like explain from the rule book, if you get this card, this is what it means. And it's like this really obtuse thing to remember. And it's just like, okay, it'd be better if these cards like were not in the game at all. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I also realized the kind of deduction you were making usually didn't feel like you made a lot of interesting deductive leaps or like, Search for Planet X. I played that once with you. There's times where you are like, because I know this and I know this over here and here, I can determine this thing that wouldn't have been like intuitive. I found here, normally you're getting information that lets you cross things off and you're just kind of like narrowing it down by getting that information.
Until you get to
very rarely did I go, ooh, because I know this and this and this, I can actually rule out this other option. Mm-hmm. And it was still fun to get these options and watch it narrow down. But I just realized it wasn't going to have as much staying power for me. And combine that with it being kind of hard to get to the table and really needing to have the right group and it taking kind of long. I just realized it wasn't one I could hold on to.
I also didn't love how the whole trading evidence, I don't know. It was like fun at first, and then it's like, oh, they just sent me back all stuff I've had before.
That is the other weird thing in the game is like, they say like, oh, don't give somebody back what they gave you because then they won't want to trade you through in the future. The problem is, one, nobody like remembers where they got cards. Like, we end up like apologizing to each other. I'm like, I don't think this is what you gave me 3 turns ago, but it might be. I don't remember.
Right.
And it is this weird balance of like, well, if I'm playing to win, I should never give out information I know is really good and try to just hold it and then bury it when you have an opportunity to discard. But then that's like not in the spirit of the game. So I don't know. It's a really interesting design, but wasn't one that I could keep.
Yep. I can concur with that. My next pick is going to go to Fields of Arle, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Really, really wanted this one to hit because
we're kind of Uwe Rosenberg fanboys to a certain degree. We like a lot of his.
We do. My wife, one of her favorite games is Agricola, so I thought like, man, if we could get this one specifically for 2 players, like this could be a huge hit. Yeah, gosh, it just had. I mean, one of the things, in contrast to Agricola, which has very tight decisions. This one definitely leaned more towards kind of the maybe Feast for Odin sandbox. There's like, there's just a whole huge board and you can do a ton of things. It is interesting. You alternate between summer and winter, I think is the kind of 2 halves of the boards. You're taking actions on one side and then the other. The biggest thing for me, and I hate this feeling when I go into a game like this, and honestly, if Feast for Odin gets a little close to this, is well, I guess I just got to decide what strategy I'm going to do this game. And if I want to, I could do the exact same strategy I did last game. And like you have all these actions and there's nothing that differentiates. There's no variable setup. You just start the game and it's like, well, do I try this again? Or I have nothing guiding me.
And we love when a game gives us some variable input and then says, how do you want to approach the game with these options?
Yeah, and because, I mean, one, there's part of me that's like, well, if you figure out kind of your best strategy, or if I win a game with a strategy, why would I ever not just do that again?
Yeah.
And obviously the, variability comes from what the other person's taking, but the board's so big that you're oftentimes not even getting blocked. Like sometimes, getting like in Agricola, well, Agricola has all the cards too, but even just getting blocked can change your strategy,
Totally.
So the actual mechanics of the game are pretty fun. The actions, the all of that, but man, no variability in terms of game to game, and that just killed it for me. So too bad, because I think it has a lot going for it that's fun. But we would much rather play Agricola, Terraforming Mars, games like that.
Yeah.
So there you go. 7 for me, Field of Arle.
All right, I will bring in our last 7 out of 10. And this is a game, sometimes you buy a game not because it's so caught your interest, but because it's just getting such consistently good ratings from reviewers and stuff. And you're like, there must be something I'm missing from me looking at it, that there's more to it. And that is, and that is Meadow. And this was one that I really wanted to because, or wanted to be interested in because of the really nice nature themed, beautiful watercolor artwork. It's this is a game that's very appealing to get to the table with a lot of people. I thought maybe my wife would like it because it's not super strategic, but has a little bit of meat. And at the end of the day, and I played it several times, it was fine. It was fine. You kind of are collecting these cards.
That's when you know a game's leaving.
Yeah, and you use these arrow things to kind of go on this grid. If I put my 3 to the side, I'll take the card that's 3 in. And a lot of the cards have prerequisites of, what needs to be under it to play it as you kind of build up your little ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay, doing all this, but I never felt like I was making particularly interesting decisions. And so that would still be okay if it was just kind of light decisions, easygoing game. It's a relaxing game with this nice nature theme. But then it's a 90-minute game. And that was really the killer. It's if this is the game it is, it's got to be way shorter for me. That is just too long to be doing that, to try to get it to the table. Especially when you played with 4 players. The way they it basically had more rounds than with less players because they wanted to give everybody an equal number of starting first or something. And that was just way too long. I mean, it was just for what it is. And I know this is one that, it's pretty highly rated and a lot of people really love it. But after several plays, I just realized I'm not wanting to get this to the table at the length it is and kind of not a lot that's getting me excited about the decisions I'm making, which is a tragedy because it looks so beautiful. Every card has unique watercolor artwork. It is really some of the best presentation artwork in a game. But for me, that's not enough to keep a game around. And so Meadow, stamp a 7 out of 10 on it and ship it out. Yep. I actually have the next one as well, which is Rolling Realms. I'm giving that a 7.5 out of 10. There are too many roll and flip and write games to even keep on your radar these days.
Yeah.
And I had kind of looked into Rolling Realms a little bit, and it was okay, there wasn't something jumping out at me as this is going to be so interesting, but I did love this concept of every round you have a different combination of realms. And then Jamie Stegmaier from Stonemaier Games, who made it, they're starting to partner with other publishers to make expansion packs.
That's
so you can
super
get
cool.
The Arc Nova set, and you can get the Feast for Odin. And so I'm man, do I want to like this game, because it's infinite expandability and it's very meta. We're into board games, so it's fun to see all these different games. The
different ones, yeah.
The thing about Rolling Realms is it ends up falling in this really weird in-between, where it is not a really light and accessible roll and write. No. You would think it's going to be, because it's just roll 2 dice, use those 2 values on 2 cards. But the way all the resource stuff works, if you acquire pumpkins and hearts and coins, and there's all these different ways you can use those to manipulate, to adjust, and get extra dice. And you have to remember that if you get extra dice, you still can't use it in the same realm. But if you spend 2 or 3 pumpkins or whatever it is, then you can do one in the same realm. that all added this complexity on it that if you want to play well in Rolling Realms, you need to really understand how to work that to your advantage. And I found that really bumped it out of this category that I could play this with anybody. Okay, well, if it's going to bump it out of that category, now it's got to be a strong roll and write with, you know, a little bit more of my gamery group. And in that group, it's almost a little too light because it's the actual decisions. Once you understand all that, it is pretty lucky and there's interesting decisions and I enjoyed it. But I just realized I'm like this, I was getting it hoping it would fit more that light pull out with anybody. And with it not being that, I have other games that I like more in that category.
Yeah.
And so it was a shame. I think I just like was holding on to hope because I was all ready to just want to like get all those expansion boosters and like, oh, I want to like it. But I just realized, man, for the times I can get to the table, I think there's other games that are better in that niche.
Yeah, that one's
so 7.5 for me.
That one surprised me because we played it over, I believe over Christmas. I tried that one. And yeah, I was expecting, you know, a pretty light one. And then as we started, I was like, okay.
And that actually may have been the game because we played with a larger group. I think that's the game where it really started to hit me how, because we definitely had some players in that game that would skew more towards wanting a lighter game. And honestly, even like, I mean, I think of your wife who plays lots of heavy games and still even players like that, it takes a little bit to grok how the system works. Like, and as I teach it, I'm trying to like emphasize this, but it's, you know, people are starting to be like, oh, this is a little more complicated than I was thinking we were going to play. So yeah, it's like you added complexity without like adding enough like interesting strategy, I guess.
Meat around it.
So it's a cool design.
It is too bad because that is a really cool design. I agree. I wanted us to all like that one.
I guess we generally want to like the games.
we usually don't want to hate our games. Going to my next pick, a really nice game, honestly, and that is Patchwork. I'm giving that a 7.5 out of 10. Honestly, the reason it's leaving my collection probably has more to do with my wife not loving it. And I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did really enjoy just the light and polyomino but you're also building kind of an engine as you go. You know, it didn't ever like, whoa, I want to play Patchwork. But it was like, I could always play a game of Patchwork. Like, it's a nice light game. I think it you know, for some reason didn't hit with her. And when you have a 2-player game and you're, you know, your primary, you play most of your games with, and kind of got it for her because she usually likes polyomino type games. And especially when they're really like tight fitting pieces together. This one, I don't know, it's just not super tight. You kind of you can, I don't know, fit the pieces fairly easily for the most part. But honestly, a game that I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously a lot of people really like, and one that if you are looking for kind of a lighter polyomino but has a little bit of this engine building, is definitely one worth checking out. I think it's a good design and one that there's a little bit of sadness, you know, in my heart. That I think
one of the most interesting things about Patchwork is it is a light game in that it's easy to teach and like understand, but then that's combined with the fact that it's essentially a 0 luck game. Every tile is out from the beginning. You always know what options you're getting to your opponent. So it is this weird thing that like I could also see 2 players that are a little bit more heavy can really get into it and have a cutthroat game. So you can kind of play it 2 different ways, like kind of the casual, you know, I don't really care so much about blocking you. And
it's true.
But yeah, it was one, I think I have similar feelings to you. I enjoyed it, but never felt like a need to own it. I don't get 2-player games played as much these days. But
definitely one of those things that's like, if my wife would have loved it, it's like, okay, cool, this is staying. But for me personally, it's like, it's good. I can enjoy it, but also don't need it.
Yep. Well, I am giving a 7.5 to another roll and write that is leaving my collection. And it does sadden me a little bit because I really like the design here. And that is Super Skill Pinball 4K. And this essentially is pinball machine, the roll and write. And there's these different, you know, it's cool because the system can be applied to all these different tables. So they've released expansions and the tables have different ways they work and bonuses.
Did I play this one?
I don't know if you got to try this one or not.
I was going to say, I don't think I ever did.
Yeah, so it's very cool because unlike most roll and writes where, you do it, you roll something and then you apply that to your sheet, here you have a metal ball that's bouncing around. And so when you're applying the results, it's always where can your ball currently go? So it's like you're on a certain place in your board which just makes it very interesting. And there's a little bit of push your luck as far as, how you choose to fall down and hit your flippers and stuff. For me, I think there were two things that kind of kept it from sticking around. One was that I actually played it a little bit solo, because when you're playing multiplayer, talk about multiplayer solitaire. You do not influence each other in any way. Like, you roll the dice and everybody uses those results on their pinball machine. And like, once somebody loses their 3 balls, they're out of the game and wait until everybody else finishes. So absolutely no interaction. The only difference when you're playing with multiplayer compared to playing solo is you have to wait longer, because every time you roll, you have to wait for everybody to be ready before you do the next roll. And so after playing it solo, I just realized every time I played a multiplayer, I just wished I was playing it solo so that I wouldn't have to wait to keep, because it's solo, I can just fly playing it. So that was tough because I wasn't really looking to fill a solo niche, and that probably wasn't one I was going to come back to a lot, but it made me not want to play it as much with more players. And then the other thing is there's just on a given pinball table, there's not a lot of variety from time to time that you play it. And so after I played a certain one several times, you can try to kind of beat your high score. I just didn't feel a strong reason to want to keep coming back to that table. Cool design, but it's a competitive niche for kind of roll and write games. And that was just one I wasn't going to want to play with more than 2 people. And it just 7.5, but wasn't going to stick around for me.
A few moments later.
And let's keep it rolling with yet another roll, or this is a flip and write, but same kind of category. And if there's anything we've learned, it's that these types of games need to be better than like a 7/7.5.
I thought you were going to say, if anything we learned, Ryan hates rolling.
Yeah, hates us. No, I've just been trying a lot of them. And actually, this one has a little bit more of a caveat to it. This is Welcome To, which I'm giving a 7.5 out of 10. I actually really like Welcome To, and it likely would have stayed in my collection, except that I decided to get Welcome to the Moon, which is kind of the follow-up, and I've decided that kind of is going to be the one that's going to stick around. And there's some trade-offs. Welcome to the Moon only goes to 6 players, whereas Welcome To basically could play infinite players, and we had some games that we played up to 12 or so. I did have a little bit of problem with Welcome To. I had one thing that kept me from absolutely loving it, which is that I felt like it was too easy, especially with more players, for someone to achieve the 3 goals, which is one of the ways the game can end, is if you do all 3 of them. And so probably the last 5 times I played it, that's how it would end. And it would always end it right as we were getting to the end, where your board's going to feel very constrained. Because throughout the game, you're filling in numbers on all these houses, and you have to always be ascending. So as you fill more, it gets more tricky to be able to play them and use the actions. Mm-hmm. The problem is that last 20% of the game is my favorite part of Welcome To, where you've set things up to be, keep things open, and it's tense with each one, and can I keep it going? And so every game, it's ending and scoring right as it's about to be the most fun part of the game. And so that was just the one chink in the armor, to the point I was almost ready to house rule it somehow to not have that be a trigger or make it a little more difficult. However, got Welcome to the Moon, which is basically the same formula, but across a campaign of 8 different boards. You could just use any of them individually. You don't have to play in the campaign. And I think it does a better job of solving that issue in the games that I've played of, not just being ended too early. So I've enjoyed Welcome to the Moon. Wasn't enough reason to keep both. So Welcome To is out at a 7.5 out of 10.
So Welcome to the Moon, the current definitive best roll and write. Is that well, you also got cartographers.
That would be hard. I'd have to think about that. Maybe that's a list someday.
List someday, best roll and write.
But I have enjoyed Welcome to the Moon more than Welcome To.
Yeah, I think I have only played that one once, I think. But yes, verdict for me is still out on how I feel on Welcome to the Moon. But yeah, cool stuff. My next game I got rid of is Arcadia Quest. And this one was
gave you this one too.
Yeah, actually these are all games Ryan gave me. I'm going to be giving it a 7.5 out of 10. Arcadia Quest has a lot going for it, especially a lot in terms of games I like. I like run around, chucking dice and stuff. What I did realize is I like that in a cooperative setting a lot more. Like the type of games where you're just rolling dice and crazy things happen. I just realized I like it in a cooperative setting. Like with Arcadia Quest, it's fun, the whole element of kind of you're all running around, you're doing kind of a mini campaign, you're running around killing each other, and it is funny. It's got kind of a funny element to it of when, someone dies and they, go back and just it's a game that can get people laughing. But I don't know, it's just I don't love the like fighting each, like I would much rather take that game and just make it cooperative and like we're just fighting things together, and that's just a personal preference. The other thing is that it's a game that for it to continue being more and more fun, you just got to keep buying a lot, which there's a ton of stuff out there, which would have been really cool. But I found also it was just, so it had the fighting each other, but it also was just kind of a little too simplistic. Like it's a very much a what do they call that, the
dudes on a
beer
map
and pretzels
beer
game,
and pretzels.
Right? So which can be great, but I think for it I was just wanting something. I didn't have a group where that fit well,
well,
and
it's
I
hard
wanted something.
when it basically you have to play these campaigns to get really the true experience out of it. Of not long campaigns, kind of mini campaigns, but enough that you still probably have to get the same group together on more than one day.
Right.
Maybe it would have been a better fit if you could just play one-off things, but then you lose some of the upgrading. It's kind of tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think for me, a beer and pretzels type game, I just want to be cooperative.
Yeah.
I just that's just how I like it. So personal preference, but yeah, that's going to be a 7.5 for me, Arcadia Quest.
Alrighty, I've got our last 7.5, and this is one that's stuck around in my collection for a long time. I've actually played it quite a few times, and a big reason it stuck around is it goes to 6 players and plays well up to 6 players, which can be a bit of a rarity, especially with games that are a little bit more accessible strategy. This is kind of in maybe gateway strategy games, and this is Ethnos. I like I said, it really, the reason it stuck around is because it fit that niche pretty well, better than other games in my collection. I liked this kind of area control with almost a Ticket to Ride set collection, but then you're doing stuff on the map, but then triggering certain effects, and those effects are different which factions or whatever are in each game. At the end of the day, I think over the years my bar has raised as my collection grows. That bar of staying in the collection, goes up because I only have so much time to play games. And Ethnos, it just got to the point where it's like, I think you're retiring out of the collection. You did a good tour of duty in my collection. We had some great games.
You had a ceremony for it.
There wasn't, I didn't love it to enough to keep it around, but it was like, okay, I think it's time. Now, right after I got rid of it, they announced the new reworking Archaeos Society, which I think just came out to retail, which looks pretty different, actually. They changed a lot of, it's not so much area control now as much as like going up on these different tracks, but the tracks now have like variable ways they work and abilities, which is kind of cool because it's different from game to game. I don't know that I'll have an interest in it. I'll keep an eye on it. Like if it continues to get very good reviews, maybe I'll look into it more. But yeah, it's a good game. I'm glad it got reprinted. I always felt like it deserved a better production. It was always the game that it was like, do not look at the cover. This makes it look like some kind of intense...
wins the award for weirdest artwork choice.
Yeah, it's like good artwork for a different game.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm expecting like some dungeon crawler, like, hack and slash, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. It just it wasn't enough to keep it around any longer. And so out it goes. Now we're getting into some good ones, though. I think I've got 3 left, and you got 1 left, and everything now is 8
These
or
are
higher.
good games.
Yeah. My next one is Bunny Kingdom, and this is an 8 out of 10 for me. And that's this is still current rating outgoing. I love me some Bunny Kingdom. It is
I
a
do
very
too.
fun combination of drafting cards where your options are pretty much always
Yeah.
good. You get to always draft 2, which adds some interesting, like, because you can grab 2 that kind of go together that you maybe wouldn't have grabbed individually. But a lot of them are letting you put the bunnies out at those specific coordinates on the board. You're kind of trying to make groups of them that then have towers and resources that can score in this multiplicative, it's a very difficult word,
I don't know about that.
fashion in the scoring phases. And then you also have all these scroll endgame scoring cards. You always have to decide, do I take something that helps me now, or do I take variable scoring cards for the end? It's a lot of fun.
So much fun.
Probably the biggest killer for me, and I played it quite a few times actually. I probably played it 15 or so times while it was in my collection. Is scoring is a bear in this game, and I normally took the brunt of it, and so I didn't mind too much because I'm like, I know I can kind of handle it. It made it hard to recommend to like any group because you have to look at the map and you have to find every group of bunnies that belongs to somebody, identify how many different resources and spires are in that, and multiply them, and do that for everyone. And by the time you're to the end of the game and the final scoring, that's like a lot and like easy to
takes a
make
while.
mistakes. And so you're going through and everybody's kind of double checking. Then you get to the end of that. And then it's like, okay, everybody's scroll cards. And it's like, okay, I get a point for every carrot I have. Okay, how many carrots do I have on the board? You're like scanning the hundreds, and you're doing this for each person can have like 10 to 20 scrolls at the end of the game. And so the end of the game, it's 15 minutes before we know the winner just because we're doing all this scoring. And so I realized, I'm like, man, you know what this game needs to be is an app. Because if this game was an app and you could just get to the end of the thing and just press a button, it would just score everything automatically. That would let you just focus on the fun parts and not, worry about it. But it just really drag it down for me. It also fit kind of a weird niche of being a little bit heavier than kind of the most accessible games, but maybe not as heavy to come out with some of my more gamer groups. So I didn't, sometimes have the right group for it. But I think the biggest killer for me was just the tediousness of the scoring and another one that I consider in that category of it's had a nice stay in my collection. I had a lot of fun with it, but I just couldn't keep it along any longer.
I loved the card drafting in that game. I really, really loved it.
Yeah.
And I never had to do the scoring, so I'd never had to go through the mental burden. But everyone has to just sit there while you're doing it, Well, I mean, they're like telling you, their personal scoring cards, but I want to say the last time we played the endgame scoring, it was like, oh my gosh, this is taking so long.
And I guess it even can drag a little bit before endgame scoring, because towards the end of the game, if you get the option of scrolls, you have to determine which of these is better for me, which often means you have to compute them completely, like what it would score for you if I take this card. Similarly, I may already have cards that's like, may influence. So there's just a lot going on there at the end to determine how you weigh different score values. And I think it just has like a little bit. I mean, honestly, the best way I could put it is it's a game that would be better off if
app.
a computer is handling that. There's just too much like
there might be an app
processing.
for it, honestly.
There might be. Yeah. But there you go. Bunny Kingdom on its way out. My next one is on its way out for a very different reason. And that is because it's a campaign game. And I largely am done with the campaign. And that is Gloomhaven. Now, we both have played a lot of Gloomhaven. We basically have both completely played the base Gloomhaven. I think we've landed after that campaign in a little bit different camps of how we now feel about Gloomhaven. I'm at the point where I'm giving Gloomhaven an 8 out of 10, and I feel done with it. I had a really good time with it, but I have no desire to play any more Gloomhaven. And that was part of why I got rid of it, was like I had kind of finished with my group. We actually didn't quite finish, but a lot of life happened, including a global pandemic. And it was like, okay, we're probably not going to make this happen at this point. And I didn't feel very driven to make it happen, because I am now at the point where I felt kind of done with the systems in Gloomhaven and the gameplay with it, even though I do enjoy it. So it's an 8 out of 10 for me. I know for you, I think want to play more Gloomhaven. I think that would be...
Yeah, so Gloomhaven actually will probably at some point be leaving my collection as well, but for a very different reason. Not because I don't like it anymore. I played through the whole campaign, but because it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I want to continue on to, if I don't have a group right now, but I could definitely see in the future. First of all, if I have maybe a lighter group playing Jaws of the Lion, I've heard really great things about that. But honestly, Frosthaven sounds amazing. I'm not tired of the mechanics yet. Yeah. I just love it. I had so much fun playing through it. Playing through the original campaign. Yeah, it's Gloomhaven. We both got the experience, but kind of have landed now in different places. But yeah, that's it's one of those things where once you're done with the campaign, there's not a lot of reason to.
Because originally, when I was in the middle of the campaign, I was like, I could see this being a game I hold on to and someday play the campaign again with kids or something like that. Now, obviously, now that Frosthaven exists or Jaws of the Lion, there's other options to doing another Gloomhaven campaign. But yeah, for me, I didn't feel like coming back to it any longer, even though I look upon it very fondly in my experiences with it.
Nice. Well, we are going to my final and highest rated game that I got rid of, and that is going to go to Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, which I'm giving an 8 out of 10. A lot of things I really, really enjoy about Mansions of Madness. I mean, we both really enjoy the Lovecraft universe, games like that. And this game kind of, it's run through an app, and so you have missions that you're doing and going through. This one has a lot of fun things in it, but again, I mean, we've said this before. It dawned on me just like the replay variability, and this is something I'm really cautious about with mission games where it's like you play this specific scenario. Is I'm always a little nervous of, okay, well, that's great, and especially ones where maybe you discover things in this, like, oh, you have a surprise. It's like, okay, that's great the first time you play. Yeah. But what about the future times? And so Mansions of Madness, the first times I was playing through missions, I was like, this is great. I really, really like this. A lot of fun. But then we got to the point where I played some of those missions again, and it was fine. It was like, okay, you don't have the surprise anymore. Now it's just kind of now you're just kind of left with the mechanics of the game, and I just find they weren't that exciting. One thing personally is I just felt like, with the app and the part of the fun is getting into the story, right? And I think the stories are really cool, but I found just so often it got to the point where I'm just like tapping through I can tell it's like I'm in, as the person kind of running the app and with the group, I'm in this tension of like, I really want us to be into the narration and the story. And then it gets to a point where I can tell the group's just like, okay, let's keep this moving. And I'm just like reading really fast and tapping. And, it has puzzles in it, but then they're the same like every game, I really struggle with games that I'll say this, if a game is going to have a like surprises story where playing it again, you don't get it again, it just needs to go all in on that and just deliver the most incredible, like, almost like like a Chronicles of Crime or something like that, where like, you're not going to play this again. But
don't go in with the expectation that this is replayable.
But it's like, if I'm going to play this again, don't lean into like story surprises, because then when I play it again, it's just not that great. And that's why I think we love like an Eldritch Horror so much, is it doesn't really lean into like story, but you could just play it over and over and over again and get a lot of fun out of it. So ultimately got rid of that one. I just don't know where I land on games that have app missions. I mean, you have Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say, I'm currently doing a Journeys in Middle-earth campaign, which is based off the Mansions of Madness system. The big difference is, instead of standalone missions, you're doing a campaign of like 14 missions. So there's a little bit more of this progression. It'll be interesting to see where I land with it. For me, what kind of, because I'm in the same camp as you as far as that feeling about the replayability. The thing that got me over that hump with Journeys to Middle-earth is the fact that they're like 14 about mission campaigns. And currently, if you have the expansion content, I think there's 6 different full campaigns out. So it was kind of the realization that like, I'm probably not going to play all of them. So at any given point, I'm going to have some, like I don't have to go back and play the same ones for a long time. I'll be interested if I ever do to see how much, because I know it does generate it's kind of a similar thing where they generate it differently and things are different. You can play with different characters, but a lot of the story beats are going to be the same. But it may be that I just never have to play the same one again because there's campaigns available that I could go to if I want to continue it. So I'll get back to you in like 20 years when I...
There you go. Tune in. We've already got that video scheduled.
Set your reminders. Yes.
Set your reminders. Smash that subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're reminded when Ryan posts that in 20 years.
I am going to bring us to our final game, which is, of all the games on the list, my highest rated one. And this is one that leaves largely because it's in the most competitive niche in my collection.
And because Daniel hated it.
And because Daniel didn't want to play it. This is Keyflower. So I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. It falls into that category of a little bit longer kind of strategy games. It is very unique, which usually that's the type of thing that can keep a game like that around, as if it feels very different. And Keyflower does feel very different. It's got this very unique building up your town, but you're acquiring things by bidding. And when you bid on something, you determine the suit for that. So if I bid with red, you can only beat me with red. It's the same way the worker placement places start. I also can go take worker placement stuff in other people's towns, which I know is something Daniel did not like about this game, is building his town and having me come over and plot my people in it and make it more difficult to use his stuff. But it is fascinating, a fascinating game. I think it definitely proved it was hard to get to the table for a couple reasons. One, you need a very specific type of group where people are okay with this, like more thinky, build your own thing, but it's it's highly interactive. And some might say mean, at least if you're not expecting certain things.
Some would say that, right?
It can come across as mean. And so there's not a lot of people that want that type of game want to build their own thing and not worry about any of that. And that's not really the type of game Keyflower is. I also found it doesn't have a lot of, well, one, it's not a very exciting theme or anything. So that's another thing, is you got to convince people to like come into this game that doesn't have a lot of things that are going to excite them about it. It didn't have a lot of exciting variability. The tiles come out in a different order, but are normally pretty much the same tiles. You get different winter tiles, but there aren't like a lot of big, like, whoa moments of variability in the game. And so I really liked it. And it was a game that I thought I was going to continue to hold on to because I really liked it. And it was very different from other games I had. But at the end of the day, the combination of it not really getting to the table, the fact that I really liked it, but I didn't really love it. This is in a niche where I'm looking for 9s and 10s in this niche. Like this is our ideal type of game, is in this category. And so quite frankly, 8 isn't good enough. In a lot of other niches, an 8 is great. Like if we rate a party game an 8, it might be our favorite party game of all time. An 8 in this niche is just, I've got too many good games. I'd rather get to the table. And so
that's honestly that's a similar thing with Mansions of Madness, right? Like I was choosing between that or Eldritch or Nemesis or like, that Mansions might be a little shorter, but still it kind of was a similar feeling. Yeah. Keyflower, I did not like Keyflower very much. For a few reasons. Yeah, I also agree. I didn't really like get into the theme. The theme's not that great. It doesn't really look that good. It kind of reminds me of what you were saying about The King is Dead, where I can see the mechanics are really interesting, but it was not fun. And the whole like we're playing on each other's buildings, and I can come into your buildings and just take, like, I spend all this time building this building, and then you just come and you take it, and now I can't use it. Like, I get mechanically how that's interesting. That was not fun. I did not like that. The game to me, all throughout the game, communicated, oh, you're building your own stuff. You're building your own stuff. but then that's not the game. The game isn't. I mean, you build this stuff, but then it's all, and it can get into blocking, and I just didn't like that feeling. And so it did not give me a good feeling while playing it. So I was pretty low on Keyflower and campaigned for Ryan to get rid of it. So.
Yeah, it is the type of game where, like, once you realize what type of game it is, it's kind of that tension of, like, okay, do I need to take this action in my town first because someone else might come in and take it and get it to a color I don't want it to be? And so it's the type of game where there's this tension of order of operations based on what do I think other people are going to do first, and then looking for opportunities to do that, right? Like, I know Daniel over there's got this really good tile. Like, I could potentially make it more difficult on him by picking the color on it, and then for him to go there, he has to bid with more meeples than what I placed. Very fascinating game. I can see why people love it so much. I'd be happy to play it, again, like, given the opportunity. An 8 out of 10 is definitely in that category of games we really enjoy and would play. But the bar to own it, we're pretty picky in kind of trimming our collections to our favorites across a lot of niches. Thanks for watching. I highly doubt you made it through the whole thing without jumping around a little bit, but if you did, you get like 100 rolls in the family points that are absolutely worthless. Feel free to check out some other videos on the channel. We've got a few of them suggested here. Consider subscribing for more content like this, and we will see you in the next one.